I go, I'm putting on. Putting on, putting on. Everywhere I go, I'm putting on. Putting on, putting on. Everywhere I go, I'm putting on. Putting on. Where you from?
Welcome to Popcorn Sports on the Popcorn Entertainment Network. I'm your host, Mike Kyle, and welcome back to our series explaining why you should be rooting for every NBA team for the 2018 season. Of course, I am not alone. I am joined by Giancarlo Navas of the MiamiHeatBeat.com. Check him out there. He's the host, editor, and co-founder. First off, hello, introduce yourself. How you doing today?
Thank you for having me on the program. Very excited. It's a lot of fun. I'm not used to the video medium. I'm more of a podcast/print guy, so this is going to be fun.
Good, awesome. So my first question for you is, how did you become a fan of the Miami Heat?
Well, I live in Miami, so that kind of my uncle was actually a big Heat fan, and when he lived here, he would watch all the games. And actually, there's actually a really funny story. So that's how I started as a kid, but I was never really invested in it until I got into high school. And I had to, I switched schools, and I switched classes. I started taking AP classes. I didn't know anybody in class. So I needed to find a way to make friends because I didn't know anybody. So I pretended to be super obsessed with basketball as a joke to make friends. And now it's my career path. So now here we are.
Yo, whatever works, right? I mean, especially it's when you get to obviously schooling and all, just such a judgmental environment almost. So you got to try and fit in as best you can. And
I was like, what's the most socially acceptable thing that I can really like to make friends? Because I had always liked the Heat. I had watched the team. I owned a jersey, but I didn't really care. I didn't watch all the games. I was kind of in and out. Oh, basketball's on, I guess. But at that point, I became a real big fan, and I was watching all the games and reading stuff, and so that's kind of where that happened.
So hang on, but I'm gonna I guess fast forward in this case a little bit. So how did you end up starting Miami Heat Beat?
So, funny enough, my sister's friend, Brian Goins, the other co-founder, he was in sports media as well, and I just started writing for my university paper.
Okay.
And they didn't let us talk about the Heat. They didn't let us, I did the radio station, and I was writing for the paper. They didn't let us cover the Heat. And I'm
what? Hang on, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, go.
So I'm going to assume, because my college like this too, they more just focus on university stuff. They don't want to really expand, right?
They're you cover FIU sports, go to Florida International University, you cover FIU sports, you cover, don't veer off. And it's on the radio as well. So I go to my sister's friend Brian. I was like, dude, we're both in sports media. We both want to write and talk about the Heat. Let's make something. So we started Heat Beat off an iPad in my kitchen. And now, as you see, there's a bit of an elaborate setup. And we came from the bowels of the internet to we actually got press credentials yesterday. We covered a Pat Riley event, got to talk to him for a bit. So,
man, that's awesome. Good for you guys.
Thanks, man.
Especially as somebody who is starting their own little media network here, that, stories
man.
like that. That's what I'm looking for. Exactly.
We can all do it,
Absolutely. So let's just jump off into just some general overview of the Heat. Let's give some people just a brief recap of the franchise as a whole. They were an expansion franchise in 1988, and they are called the Heat because of the temperatures in Miami, fittingly. And the reason why I'm throwing that in there is just because you know how people pick their March Madness brackets based off of team names? It's that same concept. And as a related note to that, their team colors are red, white, and black because, once again, people just like to pick their teams or sports, whatever, based off of jersey colors. So I think that's a big thing.
It's actually not a very Miami color base.
It's not. Oh, but we can get to the jersey that is.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about. Exactly.
I know very well.
So they're playing the Southeast Division with Charlotte, Atlanta, Orlando, and Washington. 20 playoff appearances and 3 championships, with their last being in 2013. And I think it's a really interesting time to be a Miami Heat fan as a whole. Would you agree?
It's kind of it's a weird place. I don't know if it's an interesting place. It's certainly a weird place because I think a lot of the fans aren't really used to what's going on now, particularly modern Heat fans. So it is kind of weird. There's usually the Heat, they've either been good. I mean, since Dwayne Wade joined in 2003, they were a perennial playoff team up on the rise, contending. They get Shaq in 2004. They're playing for championships. In the 05 playoffs, Dwayne breaks a rib. He can't really play. Then they win the next year, and then it kind of all falls apart. But when it all fell apart, Riley kept saying, we have a plan in 2007, 2010. LeBron's a free agent. Bosh is a free agent. Amari Stoudemire's a free agent. Joe Johnson's a free agent. Like, there was a plan. Like, as fans, we were told, okay, we're bad now, but let's look to this day because this is what we're going to work for. And all the contracts aligned so that they were all off the books in 2010. I think the only player under contract that year was Mario Chalmers and Michael Beasley, and they moved Michael Beasley on draft night. So they only had one player under contract going into free agency in 2010 when they got LeBron, Dwayne, and Bosh.
Which is an absolute, which is insane. I mean, I'm trying to think, I'm blanking off the top of my head, but wasn't there a team recently who had that same situation? Wasn't it Brooklyn?
Was it?
Was it Brooklyn?
I don't know. I just remember Riley saying there was no plan B. He's been on the record saying there was no plan B. Like, this was it. And now we're in this situation where they gave out a lot of really weird 4-year contracts to Kelly Olynyk, James Johnson, Dion Waiters. Not really like things that they're used to doing. And they have the Tyler Johnson and Hassan Whiteside, which are the big money contracts on the team. They don't really line up with all the other money. So they kind of like, it's very weird. Like this did not seem as calculated as other Heat offseason or plans, if you will.
Right, and we're going to actually get to that right now. If we're going to look at the roster right now, obviously we don't know what Dwayne Wade's situation is.
Man,
do you have any theories or speculation based off that? I think he's coming back. I think one more year. More year.
I talked to Riley yesterday, and he was asked
hashtag sources.
Hashtag sources. Riley was asked if they're going to offer, just straight out, Ira Minderman of the Sentinel down here in Miami, asked him straight up, is Dwayne Wade going to get are you going to offer him a taxpayer's mid-level exception? And his answer was telling, because the first thing he said was, this is not about negotiation dollars or mid-level. And I'm like, Pat, you could have made this go away by just saying yes. Like, by not saying yes, you make it a money thing. Right? Like, by saying it's not a negotiation, I mean, you make it go away by saying yeah. Because if you're basically putting the onus on Dwayne at that point, right? Like, if you say, no, we'll offer the maximum amount of money that we can offer you, which is a taxpayer's mid-level exception. The issue with that is that a taxpayer's mid-level exception, because they're over the cap, I think will be like a $16 million hit on a $5-point-something million contract. They just signed Wayne Ellington that pushed them over the cap. So unless they can clear like $12 million, they're going to be a tax team. So that $5 million is going to be $16 million. And that's kind of the undercurrent of what's going on here.
It all comes down to the money.
He didn't sound confident, man.
At the end of the day, it's crazy, you know. I mean,
dollars,
like that's
man.
Like, to me, that's crazy that you have, you know, a player like Dwayne Wade. Obviously, he's not the D Wade of old, but as we saw last year, like, he can still be Dwayne Wade.
Yes.
Just especially in a limited role, and obviously just being just a Heat lifer till the day he dies. Why you aren't throwing money at him? You know, even if it is just like a mid-level exception or whatever it is. Like, why has there not even been an offer made? Or anything like that. Like, that's your guy. That is literally your guy.
Look at Dirk. Look at Kobe. Like, this happens around the league. And the weird thing about Pat is that they went through this. The reason why he's not here is because he said explicitly, I did not feel wanted. Ethan Skolnick at the time was with Bleacher Report. He asked Dwayne just straight up, like, did they try? Dwayne's like, no, man. Like, they did not. They didn't make me feel like they wanted to be here. And we're doing this again. Pat's like, I was in vacation in Amalfi, like, you know, blah, 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 like cranking up the excuse machine. And he seems so confident on Udonis Haslem returning. He's like, yeah, UD, we feel like we're going to get it done, blah, blah, blah. And with Dwayne, there was a lot of hedging qualifiers. So didn't make me feel good, man.
Which is just crazy because, like, obviously, like, the NBA loves UD. The NBA loves Udonis Haslem.
I feel like a lot of people like hate UD, like fans.
And this is where I'm getting to. I feel like the NBA as a whole, like management, players, whatever, they love UD. But then when you look at like the dynamics of everything, like Dwayne Wade actually plays still. You know, Udonis Haslem sits the bench. Like, you're going to get something out of Wade. You're not going to get much out of UD. And so it's kind of like this awkward dynamic, and it's like, what is going on here? But anyway, let's get into the rest of this roster. You got guys like Bam, who played pretty well last year. Hassan can be a bit of a head case, but can be a bit of an all-star at times, depending on your view of how he plays. Tyler Johnson is one of my favorite wacky NBA players.
Ugh, I hate him.
Dion Waiters, I don't like him. I'll be very open about that. Kelly Olynyk, Justice Winslow. Like, this is just such a unique roster. That's the best way I can put it. What are your thoughts? Break it down for me.
So they're weird because they have like a million guards. So you don't even mention Josh Richardson, Goran Dragic, Rodney Magruder, Dion Waiters, Tyler Johnson, Wayne Ellington, possibly Dwayne Wade. That's 7 rotation guards.
Yep.
All those guys play, right? So it's like they have a surplus of guards that doesn't make sense. And they don't really have like a traditional like small forward, especially one that can shoot. Winslow, you want to play him at the 4 more than the 3. Mm-hmm. They don't have like a guy to stick in the 3 spot. Like an Otto Porter would have been like a really good addition if they were able to trade Hassan for him or whatever. And the Hassan thing is like all your money's in Tyler and Hassan. Yeah. And both those guys don't play at the end of games. Tyler's always hurt because he doesn't take care of himself. Like he's just like throws himself after every loose ball. He's always hurt. He's undersized. And your 2 big money guys, 19 million and 20 something million, you don't have on the court.
Yep.
Right? Like, so you want Bam to get more minutes. Justice Winslow really turned a corner in the second half of last season. He was getting to the rim. He was finishing more consistently. He finished as like a 38% shooter from 3 off low volume, granted, but that's the improvement that you want out of a guy that came into the league with question marks about a shot. So they're weird because they have like really serviceable above average players and they just don't have anybody in the right spot. And then the money that they have committed doesn't play. Right. So it's like, what are we doing?
Yep. Right. Okay. So that was all right. Hang on. I'm trying to process that because that's obviously a lot. That's a lot. And you are right to, a very, very great extent. You are right. Obviously with all those guards. And obviously, when you play, as you talked about, Hassan doesn't play at the end of games. It's because, well, he's a big, and we are in a guard-heavy league, and obviously, he's not he doesn't extend the floor well.
He got
any of that of the
off
modern
the
NBA.
Floor by Ersan Ilyasova in the playoffs. Like Ersan Ilyasova schemed him out of a series. Like your max guy can't be like out. Like Ilyasova can't be getting your max player out the game.
Right, exactly. And so with that being said, let's kind of transition this into a more of a positive note. What are the bright spots in this roster? Because, obviously every team has some, even if they are in this little weird state. What do you see of the positives for the Heat right now?
I'm going to give you a few. I'm going to give you that James Johnson last year was not himself, and he did have a sports hernia. He had surgery for it in the offseason. If he can come back to the self that he was the year before last, who was one of the best defenders in the league, a very, very good ball handler, can play point center or point power forward for those wacky SPO lineups. That's a huge positive for them next year. The core 3 young guys, Justice Winslow, Bam Adebayo, Josh Richardson. Jay Rich, just outside of all-team defense this year, an elite wing defender. Miami doesn't really play a lot of switching defense, so Jay Rich he doesn't really get to shine that way. But he is a really, really incredible player who's added so much to his game. Last season, he added that little scoop shot that really, really helped him. He's getting to the rim more. And Bam is a project. He was really raw last year, especially offensively.
Yep.
So there's improvements all around in those areas. And getting Wayne back, I don't really like that they put him over the tax for Wayne because that might cost them Wade. But Wayne Ellington was a guy last season that had so much gravity, and he was deadly coming off those little pin down sets from the baseline. Yep. All of their sets, their best sets ran through those Wayne Ellington curls off screens, and then they create misdirection, and Goran's able to get to the rim, Hassan's able to roll. They get so much out of that him coming back was huge because that just wasn't that replaceable.
And I think another thing going off of that is just because Wayne is such a good 3-point shooter. On those pin downs, you see him coming up at the top of the key or off the wing, and you're like, oh crap. Okay, do we go out and hedge off over that, or do we protect the rim? Excuse me, stuttering there. It's like Wayne is just one of those guys where once you get him in those pin down sets or just moving around the floor, he can kill you just because it opens up so much for everybody else.
So they really love this set that they used to run for Ray Allen and LeBron, where Allen would screen for Braun up top, and then Allen would flare out and Bosh would screen for him, right? So Allen's screening for Braun, Braun's at the 4, right? So they create so many mismatches, and then Bosch, the center, would come screen for the Allen Flair. They kind of do it similarly with Winslow, James Johnson, and Ellington, and they create, obviously it's like super discount bin what I'm talking from LeBron, Ray Allen.
Absolutely.
But I mean, it's a really effective set. They do it with Olynyk a lot as well. I think one of the best lineups in the league last year in net rating was Olynyk, Ellington, and I'm missing one. I think it might be Bam or James Johnson. But one of those Ellington Olynyk lineups was one of the best in net rating in the league. So that's another positive, and they get a lot of mileage off like those really wacky Spoelstra lineups and those like weird, like he'll run horns with guards. Like they do really weird stuff, but it's Ellington allows them to do that.
Absolutely. So shifting gears now to the fan base and just the fun around the Miami Heat, because obviously being in Miami, there are some chaos to it, for sure. So first off, the thing I want to talk about is just the loyalty within the Miami Heat fan base. And it almost it starts with the organization, and obviously it's kind of tilted over the course of the past few years with the whole Wade situation. But even just kind of just going back, it's like, dude, once you're a member of the Heat, as they often say, you are a Heat lifer. Like, you're just part of that organization. You're part of the culture. You can look at Pat and Mickey, Spoelstra. It just extends.
Nick Arison has worked there from the bottom. Right. Nick Arison used to shag balls, and now he's Pat Riley's boss.
Which is crazy. Insane. Like that. I mean, hey, when you are the boss of Pat Riley, that is saying something. You're doing something right there.
And Pat respects him, man. Pat's out here yesterday saying, I used to watch Nick run around the locker room, and now he's my boss. And there's not an ounce of malice in that. It's like he's proud. Like it's like honestly a true, genuine family business that cares about like every employee.
I think that is just like the best word to describe it, dude. Like it's a family, and it's like it's been that way. Like that's what's crazy. It's even just it's very San Antonio-esque to where it's. I mean, we can just go back to like we can start at 2003 with D Wade. And just building that up and just everything that it's amounted to so far. I mean, just 3 championships in 2 decades. It's like, what more can you ask for? I mean, like, do you know how hard it is to win 1 and then you win 3? It's insane, man. It's just, I don't know. That's like just like the one thing about the Heat organization that I really like. And like, even like for myself trying to build, this network, it's like, all right, how do we get that Miami Heat dynamic in here?
Heat culture.
It's what it is.
Heat culture, man.
Let's see. We can shift. I mean, just going off this. I mean, Pat Riley, you talked to him yesterday. He's considered one of the godfathers. So just talking to him yesterday, your experience around the team and things of that nature. What are your thoughts about Pat?
So Pat has been very kind of dynamic in our fan base as of this point. There's like half of Twitter that calls him washed.
Yes.
And the other half that doesn't. And I'm kind of in the middle. Like, I don't agree with a lot of what he does. I do think he's changed a bit. Like, I do think that he used to have a real easy propensity just to dump picks and youth for the now. And he's done that with his salary cap lately, not with his picks. After the Dragic trade, I think he really understood that how valuable picks are in modern NBA, because with the salary boom and everything, like, you need picks to offload contracts. And young players help you offload contracts, and young players allow you not to overpay guys. So, like, I think Riley's kind of understanding that draft picks it's different. It's a different league now than it was before because of the money.
Yep, absolutely.
The other part of Pat is that Pat always swings for the hills. Like, Pat is not going to be the Atlanta Hawks.
Right. Oh, absolutely not. And that's something that we're going to touch on in a bit. Yep.
And if we're going to ride, like, but he also wants to be competitive, and he doesn't want to be the Sixers. So he's being tugged in like a million different directions. He's like, I need to kind of get with the times. On the other hand, he's like, I don't want to be the Hawks. I need to swing for the fences. And on the other hand, it's like, I don't want to be the Sixers. I don't want to tank. I want to be as competitive as possible. So he's pulling in all these different directions. And the product that you get is kind of what we have. And we have to remember that Chris Bosh almost died with pulmonary embolism.
Yes.
And Miami was going to go to war with a younger Dwayne Wade, Goran Dragic, a younger Hassan Whiteside who was on the rise and on the cheap, and Chris Bosh and Luol Deng.
Right.
That was supposed to be what they were going to go with. And the next year when Chris Bosh played his last game, they were a game away from the conference finals against Cleveland, which I think they beat twice that season, and they matched up very well against them. So let's not forget what happened here that made them into what they are today. Like, there was a confluence of events that happened that made them into this weird 500 team. But the plan was, we're dumping these picks because we're going after a win-now point guard, and they had real good players. So that's kind of where we're at with Riley. You sometimes get that, and when it goes wrong, you get this. But he's going to try. Like, they're not going to be mediocre. Like,
Right.
bad.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, that's the thing. It's like Pat Riley's not just gonna lose. Like Pat Riley is like the definition of a winner. Like that man might hate losing more than he loves his children. You know what I'm saying?
Like,
you know what I'm saying?
they go out swinging, man. Like, and it's funny that you say children. That's been a reoccurring problem with Pat, like, in his family. It's like
What?
he wants to be there. He wants to be there more for his family. Like, he's obsessed.
I thought you were going a different direction. That I was.
Oh,
okay,
no.
Okay.
I know Dan Levitard on his radio show down here and nationally has talked at length with Riley and about it, how Pat's been there for his grandkids more.
Yeah.
That he last season was very different for him. He wasn't like obsessed with basketball. So he's a guy that has always been all in kind of maybe an unhealthy way, and it's kind of made him the warped winner that he is.
Yeah.
But I do think that he's kind of stepping back, kind of appreciating it more. I mean, he looked pretty happy yesterday. I mean, probably not talking to the reporters, but he was opening a hospital down in Miami, an orthopedic hospital with the Heat and with the trainers, and just he has a different outlook on life now than he did in 2010. We can say that.
Okay. So let's kind of shift gears here from some serious, lighthearted, or from some serious stuff to some lighthearted stuff. The Miami Heat fan base and the memes. So I'm going to let you take this over, and then I'll kind of jump in. But what do you got for me as far as the fan base and the memes? Because Heat Twitter, I'm going to go on the record and say Heat Twitter is top 3 in the NBA. It's top 3.
Okay, what are the other two? Warriors Twitter brings it now because they're good. They bring it.
They do. I think Hawks Twitter is underrated. The Hawks Twitter in general is pretty good, I think.
Okay.
Celtics Twitter is number 1. Weird Celtics Twitter is number 1.
Weird
yes.
Celtics Twitter.
Yes. I am a little bit biased because one of my
They are a worthy adversary for us, let me tell you.
One of my future guests is a proud member of Weird Celtics Twitter.
Is it Kevin?
No, it's Drew Doxey. Do you know who he is?
Okay. Oh, yes, he's great.
Yes, Drew's great. I've known him for years now. That's my boy. But anyways, back to the Heat. So give me some of the memes. Give me some of the fan base. Give it to me right now.
Am I allowed to curse?
I don't care.
Okay, so back in the prime of Heat Twitter, back in the Big 3 era,
I can agree to all this because I was part of that.
We had such memes as the horse cock,
yes,
where Heat Twitter was photoshopping horse genitalia on people we did not like. We had the flying death machine. We had Cobra Dick. That was just when LeBron would do cool shit. Like, Heat Twitter was like really ruthless and funny. And I think what people don't like, Heat Twitter's kind of like, we're mean now. We're still mean.
Yes, you guys are assholes.
We're totally assholes. And people have to understand that when Twitter kind of boomed at the same time that LeBron got to Miami, right? Like that 2009, 2010 explosion of social media. The national media did not like the Heat. No other fans liked the Heat. Right. Nobody liked this team except for us. We had to create this insulated like fan base, and we had to learn how to argue with people because we were constantly being invalidated. Man, that 9-8 start was not fun. Like, losing to the Mavericks was not, like, we had to build a resistance force on the internet against national media, against other fans, and that's how we kind of became who we are, like, out of necessity. It was like born to die kind of thing. Like, we evolved to survive.
Yeah, absolutely. What has been your favorite moment of Heat Twitter, if you could even pinpoint one?
Of Heat Twitter, man. Yeah. So I don't know if there was a night, Mike Scriba, the He Gone night about LeBron.
Right, yeah.
That was a really fun Heat Twitter night. And Heat Twitter's like, some of my favorite Heat Twitter memories are mean. Like, there's this guy, New Orleans Dave, or NOLA Dave, that Heat Twitter ran off of Twitter.
Impressive.
Okay, like, that guy quit Twitter. Like, they found his address.
Okay.
Like, it's bad. No, it's really bad. Like, it's horrible. But I remember that, and I was like, why are we like this? Like, why are we animals?
Right.
So, like, that's funny. the night that they got Goran Dragic, that day was really fun, like as a Heat Twitter day, because we thought we were back. We thought we were going to war. And then Chris Bosh almost died that night. So it went from like one of the greatest things ever to we're like legitimately fearing for like one of our favorite players' lives.
Right.
The day that Dwayne left was actually another moment of Heat Twitter that I really remember because,
dude, that was sad.
It was really sad.
Everybody was in their feelings over that, and rightfully so, by the way.
But like, I've never seen like this like ruthless social media empire just like shivered up, and we were all like nobody was mad. We were all just sad. Like, Dwayne, why?
Yeah, right.
And I remember being kind of shocked by that. Like, like they bleed, you know?
Yeah, it was that specifically for me was really interesting. And then him coming back to trade with the Cavs to send him back to Miami. That was one of those things where it's just like, you know, being in Cleveland here, and I love Dwayne Wade, as I told you off cam. Like, that was one of those things where it's just like, all right, like go. Like, that's cool, you know?
The night that Dwayne came back as the Bull, that was like a really interesting night for South Florida and Heat Twitter, because that was the day after Trump's inauguration, and Miami is very blue,
right.
as it's not historically, but I think recently it's been very blue.
Yeah. And
there was just a really weird feeling in town that entire time, because it is a city of immigrants. My father's Colombian. Everyone has like these immigrant stories. So it was a very weird day, and Dwayne Wade was supposed to come back that day. That was the day after the inauguration, not the inauguration, right. The day after the election was the day that Dwayne Wade was coming into town. So he comes into town, and I remember just everyone on Twitter is like kind of hot and cold, because like, Heat Twitter's pretty liberal. So it's like people are upset, but they're also really happy that Dwayne's coming back. But it's also like a lot of emotions. And I remember being in the stadium, and I kept looking around, and everyone around me was crying during the video tribute. And like, it was it felt like such a community moment that Dwayne Wade once again gave this community something to love, something to embrace, something to care about in a really special way. That was like, that's why he's a lifer. Like, that's why Dwayne Wade is a forever man in Miami. Because like, even though he wasn't wearing a Heat uniform, he stood there in the middle of that arena with whatever 60,000, whatever that place, the AAA sits, all crying, cheering his name. Like, that was a really cool, touching community moment that I don't think I'll ever forget. I think that's probably the most memorable sporting thing I've ever been to.
All right. And with that, I feel like that's a great place to kind of wrap things up. So before we go, and before I give you your proper outro, you have 30 seconds to tell people why they should be a fan of the Miami Heat. Go ahead.
Because the memes are great. The fan base, even though mean, is really funny. Justice Winslow is better. Josh Richardson is a great guy. And honestly, like, they don't quit. Like, they don't give up. Like, this is an organization and a team that is always going to compete, and you know that they're going to try innovative stuff. Spoelstra, we didn't talk about Spo at all, but one of the most innovative coaches in the league. So they're always going to try stuff. They're always going to be competitive, and they got cool guys. Just as better. And
cool jerseys, which will flash up on the screen right now. They're Miami. Woo! They're Miami Night, right? Nope.
Miami Vice.
Get
it right.
I'm sorry.
Miami Vice.
Miami Vice alternates. They're fire. I'll throw them up on the screen right now. If you have anything to plug right now, if you want to plug the Miami Heat Beat, go ahead.
Check us out at Miami Heat Beat on Twitter or heatbeatmiami.com. We're also part of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, started by Ethan Skolnick and Chris Whittingham. Ethan's a longtime journalist in this market. Whitty is a longtime radio guy in this market, which we're doing lots of cool stuff in the network. And Heat Beat, we're going to be covering the team this year. Alex Toledo, one of our reporters, talked to Bam one day and talked to Udonis last Monday. So we have those stories up. I got to talk to Pat yesterday, and we're going to do a lot of really cool stuff with the podcast. iTunes, like and subscribe, website, Twitter, 5 Reasons. That's kind of the family of things that we got going on.
Awesome. Links to everything will be in the description down below, so be sure to hit him up on all of his social media at GNavas
103.
Thank you. I blanked for a second.
You got it.
And with that, we're going to get up out of here. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. And with that, take care. Have a great rest of your day. Giancarlo, thanks for coming on. Thank you all so much for checking out today's video. If you are new here, click the video right above my head. It's going to give you all the details about the Popcorn Entertainment Network. If you want to see the latest video from this series, click the upper left-hand corner, and be sure to check all the boxes down to the left of me. That includes subscribing, get your butt in the bucket, We'd love to have you as part of our community. Hit that like button, share it with a friend, interact with us down below in the comments section, and last but not least, check out our website, popcornent.com, where we post all new and exclusive content. And lastly, be sure to follow us on all of our social media at popcornentnet on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, we'll see you next time.